If you've had something go wrong at work and you can't seem to get your energy back, today's episode is for you because the issue isn't always motivation. Sometimes it's unprocessed disappointment that keeps draining your system. So, I'm going to share with you today what resilience actually is, why it gets depleted after a work setback, and a simple set of steps to refill it so you can think clearly again and take your next move without pushing and feeling like you've got to dig all the way down to the very, very bottom to find something. Hi, I'm Laverne McKinnon, and welcome to the Moonshot Mentor community. If you're navigating high stakes change, a career transition, or leading a team through uncertainty, I promise you're in the right place. I'm a speaker, a career strategist, and a grief coach, and I work with leaders, teams, artists, individuals to cut through the noise, regain traction, and make clear, aligned decisions spiritually, strategically, and tactically. And if you like what I'm saying, follow and subscribe because you're going to continue to get weekly insights on everything from leadership to navigating change and making pivots. But mostly it's about how to feel happier and more fulfilled in your career. Okay, let's jump in. And I always like to start with a definition. So, what does resilience actually mean? Resilience is your capacity to recover after something knocks you off course. I like to think of it like the elasticity in a pair of Spanx. So, Spanx. I'm going to show these to you. This is a pair of my Spanx. Yay! Here we go. So Spanx, they're basically shapewear. And so look how tiny this is. So I cram my body, the lower half of my body into this, and it stretches to accommodate my body and gives me shape. But then when I take it off, it just comes right back to this tiny little thing. That's elasticity. And that's what resiliency does for you. So I wore these Spanx under a fabulous form-fitting dress. And I tell you, it's like a modern day miracle how it bounces back. When our resilience runs low, rigidity kicks in because we have no energy to be supple and nimble. So the rigidity is the opposite of the elasticity. The rigidity is like the shoes I wore with that form-fitting dress with my Spanx underneath, but my shoes had no give whatsoever. They were fine and lovely and solid, but because they were so rigid, they actually fell apart that night when I was wearing that dress. They literally broke under the pressure. So in your work, rigidity might sound like I'm going to keep doing the things the way I have been doing them, despite market contractions or expansions, or maybe you have new responsibilities, or something has shifted at work, but you refuse to change. That's rigidity. Elasticity at work might sound like I'm adjusting my approach because the market has altered. I have new challenges, or I need to close a skills gap. And so you're bringing elasticity into the situation. And so that is resiliency. But there's one more thing that really matters here is that resilience is not an endless spring of water. It's a well. So it gets drained. And in our careers, our resiliency well gets drained by stress, disappointment, and unprocessed emotion. So that's why I keep hammering this. Now, you can refill the resilience well by rest, pleasure. What's important is that you take time to metabolize whatever turbulence or heartbreak or challenges or speed bumps are coming at you that have knocked you off your path. So yes, to self-care. But processing is how you stop the leak. So there are 7 steps to refill your resilience well after a misstep, a failure, a speed bump. But before you start refilling these steps, regulate your nervous system. If you try to do this work while you're activated and you're feeling upset or off your center, your brain is going to turn these steps into a courtroom and they're going to try to turn it into a verdict for you. So highly recommend that you take a walk, you do a little meditation or some breath work, you listen to a favorite song, then you dance, anything to make certain that your body is regulated and you feel really grounded and centered. Okay, let's take a look at these 7 steps to refill your resilience well. The first thing is you got to name what happened. What failed, what went off track, what didn't get done. And you just say it very plainly. In fact, I encourage you to write it down with as few adjectives as possible. Think incident report, not inner monologue. Second, you're going to separate facts from the story. Write down what you know is true and what data supports it. Now, facts do not start with I think or I feel. Facts are observable. And you write these things down so that your brain can notice how you're describing these things and what part you have in what happened. Facts just separates things out so you can see more clearly and assess. Third step, name the impact. What did this cost you? Time, money, reputation, confidence, belonging, a sense of safety, your motivation. This matters because resilience gets strained when the impact is real and unnamed. So you naming the impact, it's validating your experience, and then it allows you to be able to take a step towards refilling that resiliency well. So the fourth step is to own your part without any type of blame or shame. What was within your control that you would do differently the next time? This is not the same as fault. It's agency. Blame collapses. Agency mobilizes. 5, identify what changed. And now this is where the elasticity, the Spanx comes in. What shifted that made your old approach less effective? Market conditions, a leadership change, reduced resources, technology shift, expectations, timing. If you skip this step, you're going to default to pushing harder at a strategy that no longer fits reality, and then that's going to make you feel more and more burned out. So now that you've assessed and you can look at where is your accountability, you can now, with step 6, choose one course correction that matches your values. Just one small step, not a life overhaul, something that you can do today, this week, that aligns with who you want to be, even under pressure. It might be a conversation that you need to have, a boundary to set, a skill to update, a decision to stop discounting yourself, a new way of measuring progress. And then finally, you're going to close the loop with a refill. This is the part that most people skip. You face something tender, you told the truth, you chose agency. Now refill the well with purpose. Do something that signals to your system the danger has passed. Rest, laugh, prayer, an art project, a meal, a long shower, calling a friend, sitting in the sun. Processing builds resilience because it reduces emotional drag. Refilling builds resilience because it restores capacity. Both are really, really important. So I want to bring this all alive with a little case study. So my client's name, I'm going to put it in quotes, Heather. Heather built a solid business as a copywriter. And then over the last few years, we all know this, artificial intelligence advancement hit. And the copywriting work, it started to dry up. And she was getting fewer gigs and the budgets were getting smaller. And clients would do things like asking for a quick rewrite when what they really wanted was an entire campaign. Oh, it was devastating, not just financially, but emotionally. She built something that she was proud of, and it felt like it was just slipping out of her hands and her fingers, through her fingers, for reasons that were so out of her control. And it also brought up a lot of shame. Her self-talk sounded like, I'm stupid, I should have seen this coming, I've waited too long, I don't know what I'm doing. When Heather and I started working together, we did not start with a pivot. We started with refilling her resilience well. So we named the facts. The marketplace had changed. Her clients were using AI tools to generate first drafts, and they were hiring humans differently. They still needed thinking, positioning, voice, and editorial judgment, but they were no longer paying the same way for pure execution. Then we looked at the story. Heather had turned a market shift into an identity verdict that she should have seen this coming. So she was calling herself naive and not cut out for this. Then we had to move to the part where we owned her part without the shame, without the blame, without the name calling. She'd been trying to solve the problem by hustling harder, discounting her work and saying yes to low value assignments because she was scared. And that was the leak. Once she could see that clearly, she could see a course correction that matched her values, stop racing to the bottom, and start moving toward roles where her real advantage was still language, but at a higher altitude. Heather did a deep dive into how artificial intelligence actually works in content workflows. And this thing that felt like the enemy became a tool that she could direct. She wound up pivoting into content strategy and operations, helping small teams build an AI-assisted content system that turns one strong idea into a smart set of assets across multiple channels without losing voice, clarity, or credibility. Here's the truth of that pivot. Heather didn't abandon who she was. She still carried her talents for language and her strengths for really understanding how content emotionally impacts people. She was able to put them into a role that needed them. It wasn't the exact role that she'd been doing, but that's where that elasticity came into play, and she was able to tap into her resiliency to solve the problem after she had acknowledged the ouch and soothed her wound. Bottom line, resilience is not about pretending something didn't hurt. It's the ability to recover your capacity after it did. When you process what happened with honesty and without turning it into a verdict about who you are, you stop bleeding energy. When you add intentional refilling to that well, you restore enough internal row inside of you to make your next decision from clarity instead of fear. And that's how you get your resilience back. If you're listening or watching this and you're thinking, okay, but I still feel wrung out, consider joining the Solid Ground community. It can really help you. It's my paid membership space for rebuilding capacity after career heartbreak. So you can feel more like yourself again and get unstuck without white knuckling it. There are monthly lessons and worksheets, monthly live coaching, weekly journal prompts, and guided meditations. You can find out more by going to Moonshot Mentor on Substack. Now, before we go, I just want to say a very big thank you to the people behind the scenes that help me do what I do. Amanda Kenny for the digital strategy and social media marketing and all of the editing, and to Lauren Deacon for handling all of the operations and brand integrations for the Moonshot Mentor community. Most of all, thank you for being here. I value your time. I value your energy. I value your interest. And I'm so, so glad that you're here. And I will be with you next time. Until then, keep going after your moonshot.